Hi, my name is Mark Hansen, and this is just a quick video on lettings. We've got a guest on today who's fabulous on lettings, and it's called Nigel, and he's been in lettings and letting agencies and property for over 15 years. And I thought I'd grab him for a quick explanation of a couple of contracts that we use as landlords all of our working lives. And so let's tell you a bit about Nigel. He's written over 3,000 tenancies in his time, and he's worked for one of the biggest letting franchises in the East Midlands. So welcome to Nigel, and we're just going to give him a couple of questions just to get this video rocking and rolling. So Nigel, could you tell our viewers what is a Section 8?
Hi. Hello, Mark. Yes. The shortened version is a Section 8 is a notice you serve to ask a tenant to leave your property. And that is essentially what it is. Some of you will know it can be used for various reasons. But it's generally regarded as a way of asking someone to leave, and I use that phrase in the nicest possible sense of the word, so that they...
Damn, we got a bell there. I'm recording, sorry. But I'll do that one again. Hi, it's Mark Hansen, and I thought we'd do this quick video, and it's not about me, it's about Nigel. So what people... start again, bloody hell. Hi, it's Mark Hansen, and I'm joined today by a chap called Nigel Parry. And the reason for this video is that I'd like to ask him a couple of questions about two particular contracts that landlords have to know about if they're going to become a landlord or they're into property, and at some point they become a landlord. So I'll tell you a bit about Nigel. He's been in property over 15 years in lettings, and he's ran or joined... Hi everyone, it's Mark Hansen, and today I've got Nigel on. So Nigel Parry has been in property over 15 years, based in the East Midlands, and he ran one of the biggest lettings franchises in the East Midlands, and he's written over 3,000 tenancies in his time in business. I mean, that's a lot of tenancies. So I've got him here today to ask him about a couple of contracts that you might get stuck on in your landlording journey, and they're fairly important to know about. So let's get cracking with no further ado. So Nigel, could you tell us what a Section 8 is?
Hello, Mark. Yeah, thank you for asking me to join you today. Section 8 really, essentially in short terms, is a notice. It's a formal record that you issue to one of your tenants or tenants in a property that is asking them to leave. And it's based on situations that occur during the tenancy that you may or may not like. Default of rent, that tends to be the big one that most landlords will use as Section 8. It's not the only one. There are a lot of other grounds under Section 8. It's called a Section 8 because that's the section of the Housing Act that it appears as a way of issuing formal notice to leave your property. There are mandatory grounds in there and discretionary grounds, as they're called. Essentially what that means is if and when it goes to court, doesn't have to, but if and when it goes to court, if the mandatory grounds are proved, that's a legal jargon, then the judge has to award possession of the property. That possession can be delayed, but that's not for this particular interview. The discretionary ones are, yes, they can be proved, but it doesn't mean you'll get an order for possession of the property, and it is up to the judge's discretion whether they will award it. In my experience, you don't generally go to court under discretionary grounds only. You will always try and have a mandatory ground, and the discretionary grounds are there to just sort of prop up the mandatory ground to give you more gravitas. I was going to say ammunition, but that sounds a bit horrible. But gravitas to present information to the judge on the basis that, look, this person isn't doing what they're supposed to be doing. I need to ask them to leave my property.
Brilliant. So I've got that one. So I understand that. So what's the section 21?
Slightly different. A section 21, again, named such because that's the section of the Act that it comes from. It is and commonly known as a no-fault eviction notice. Similar to a section 8, it's not that you can serve it on a piece of paper. Essentially, it's your request for a tenant to leave your property, but you don't have to give any ground like you do with the section 8. It is literally, I want you to leave my property on this date, and that's it, essentially. It's a formal document, so it has to be in what we call a prescribed format. You can get that from the government website. And you have to fill in the dates correctly, or else you can run into problems. The big difference between section 8 and section 21, and this is really why they were created in the first place, in my mind, is a section 21 is someone wanting their property back to live in. That's my view. You can have other reasons, but you just don't need to put them, and you don't have to put them on the notice. And a section 8 is they're not really doing what they should be doing while they're in your property, whether that be paying rent, damage. They're not legally allowed. That's a new one that came in under the right to rent scenarios that they were brought in a few years ago. And there are varying timescales that are applied to the section 8, whereas a section 21 is in simple terms, is a minimum 2-month notice to vacate the property. There are foibles involved in when you serve it and how to serve it and things like that, but essentially it's a 2-month notice. And a section 8 can be as little as 24 hours. I've never seen it granted in 24 hours, but it's generally a 2-week notice. And most of them that go to court are for rent defaults. They aren't paying the rent, and they need to get out of the property because they're not paying.
Okay, so my next question is then, does the landlord decide whether to issue a section 8 or a section 21, or is there a format to do it in, as in a route to decide which one it is?
Not really. You can serve both at the same time. Obviously, you run the risk of confusing the hell out of your tenant because they've probably never received one before, and you being the landlord obviously knows a little bit more, so you should be a bit more professional in terms of how you serve it. But there's nothing to say you can't serve both at the same time. The section 21 has restrictions in terms of when you can serve it, and it's to do with the fixed term of a tenancy. There's certain rules associated with when you can serve it. Section 8 you can serve after day 1. There is no rule. You just have to prove the validity of why you're serving it if you ever then get to court, and it has to be the same rule when you served it as when you get to court. So for example, in terms of rent arrears, depending on what ground you use, it's 2 months in arrears as a general rule if you're paying monthly rent. Again, this is just the basic stuff of what I've done over the few years. If you're paying annually or quarterly, it's slightly different because it's notice periods and things like that. But essentially, run-of-the-mill ASTs that most people will issue will be monthly tenancies. So if someone hasn't paid their rent for 2 months, you can serve the section 8 and say, you haven't paid your rent for 2 months, therefore I want my property back. The problem with that situation, which can confuse a lot of people, is it has to be 2 months at the point you serve it, and it also has to be 2 months at the point you get to court. So a tenant can suddenly appear in court, pay off £100, which gets it under the 2 months liability, and it's an unproven ground at that point because it's not 2 months in arrears. So landlords need to be aware of that, and that's why I said before about having mandatory grounds and discretionary grounds, because if that happens, you can go back to the discretionary grounds and say, well, look, he or she, I'm not being sexist, he's continually late payment, missed loads of payments. This is going to happen again. So I need to get him out because he or she's not, or they are not paying their rent.
Yeah, good points. So so I think hopefully our viewers will get that and they'll understand, especially if you're right at the beginning of your landlording journey or property journey. And if you've got any questions that you'd like to put to Nigel, by all means, what I'll do is I'll put his email and his number below us in a link, and you can get directly in touch because that's what it's about, spreading knowledge and stuff. And he's got an upcoming product coming up. He's got an upcoming product. We'll let you know about that below this as well and put a link in there so you can join. So thanks for joining me today, Nigel. That was brilliant, because it's a confusing thing, the world of Section 8s and Section 21s and landlording in general. So thanks for coming on, and we'll speak to you shortly.
No problem.